Hello, this is Doug from Homes Now Not Later. I wanted to share a few updates with everyone. Our two tiny home villages, Unity Village and Swift Haven, continue to run smoothly and safely. Only a few weeks ago, Swift Haven was an empty parking lot, and now it is providing housing for around 25 people, getting them out of survival mode and helping people to get back on their feet with an increased quality of life. We have finally figured out our internet problems at Swift Haven. We were able to find internet service through a company called Trifecta Wireless. The service uses T-Mobile cell towers but does not have a data cap or speed throttling after a certain amount of gigabytes are used. Our previous hotspot with Verizon had unlimited service, but after 20 gigs of data per month, they slow the speeds to unusable speeds. In essence, it's a data cap without calling it a data cap, and a very low one at that. Our current internet is still a little too slow for servicing 25 people, but it's usable most of the time as long as not everybody's using it at the same time. We are going to try to boost the speeds by using a parabolic dish and aiming the dish at the nearest cell tower to hopefully boost our speeds. Currently our speeds are around 20 megabit per second. I hope we can up it to 50 or 75. Perhaps it's wishful thinking, but if you are also in the area, if you are also in an area that has no standard internet service providers, then this option might work for you as well. It took us a while to find it. Another issue that has occurred is that the electricity power that we have on site at Swift Haven was not enough to handle the electricity from all the structures. The city has ordered a component to increase the amperage to the site in order for us to be able to plug in all of the tiny houses. For the time being, the electricity we have is able to cover around half of the tiny homes, and we have our own generators that we're using in the meantime, and doing occasional gas runs to get electricity to all of the units. I think the main reason why the electrical was a problem in this case had to do with the heaters that were used in the tiny homes. The homes were built by 360 Modular, and they used standard electric forced air heaters. These heaters use around 2,000 plus watts each. This would definitely blow a breaker when every tiny home uses these. We had similar concerns at Unity Village, but at Unity Village we have infrared radiant heaters from a company called Heating Green, and they provide the same level of heat but use around 700 watts apiece, a much lower load. I hope that if 360 Modular is building future units, they will consider using this form of heat so that these tiny homes can be as efficient as possible and able to provide heat in areas with lower electrical capabilities. Some good news as well. This last Sunday, another large tent was constructed at Swift Haven, the same size as our kitchen tent. This tent will be used to build our on-site shower facilities, as well as provide full laundry facilities for residents of Swift Haven. Currently, we have been doing laundry at my house, as well as providing rides to the laundromat, but that will no longer be necessary within the next week. These two last components will get Swift Haven up to a standard of living and amenities that are standard in normal housing, but has been done on a shoestring budget. We are looking forward to having our own laundry and shower facilities shortly. I also wanted to thank David Morris and Tina Harkness, our two resident managers at Swift Haven. Dave and Tina were previously longtime residents of Unity Village, and they volunteered to take on the challenge of setting up a new village. They have done an incredible job, and as a result, Swift Haven has been very stable and successful without any major issues, and it's happened faster than I expected it to. I also don't want anybody to forget about Unity Village, our first tiny home community that's been in operation for over a year. Swift Haven is the new kid on the block and getting most of the attention lately, but Unity Village was the basic template for a village run by Homes Now, managed by the residents, and it continues to be an incredible success. I want to give a shout out to Tina Hayes, Scott Doran, and Julie Anderson for helping to manage Unity Village smoothly and safely like a well-oiled machine. Also, it's not just about the managers either. All of the residents from both villages have been great and helpful in many areas. Ultimately, these villages succeed or fail based on the people who live there. They have done a great job, and things continue to get better all the time. We always have room for improvement, though, and we actively seek it. I also wanted to thank the community in general for being incredibly generous with donations of needed items for both Unity Village and Swift Haven, as well as financial donations to Homes Now to help us build infrastructure for the site and cover basic supplies. I also wanted to thank the volunteers for conducting interviews and maintaining connections with campers who don't have a phone or a computer, making calls to local businesses and service providers, and providing much needed supplies as needed. Thanks to the three-way partnership between the city, county, and Homes Now, as well as the advocacy of Camp 210 BOP Mutual Aid Collective on the lawn of City Hall, putting pressure on local governments, Swift Haven was able to become operational and house people at high standards quickly, in record time. Unfortunately, though, as of yesterday, Swift Haven has reached full capacity. Swift Haven is now full. Between Unity Village and Swift Haven, Homes Now is housing roughly 45 people at this time, and it's still not nearly enough. We are continuing to receive multiple applications daily and will continue to add people to the list. The county still has 25 tiny home structures that have been ordered that do not currently have an operator or managing agency yet. Given that reality, and given that there are many more in need of housing still, and given that no other service provider has stepped up to fulfill the task at hand, Homes Now is willing to take on a third site to house more people and get more people off the lawn of City Hall and into a more stable living situation as quickly as possible. The problem is only going to get worse once the eviction ban expires. If Homes Now is able to secure a third site, we would be able to house roughly 75 people between 3 villages. Homes Now is not currently able to handle more than 3 sites total at this time. We suspect after 6 months to a year that we might be able to handle more, but for now we can only handle 3 sites. Some might argue that even 3 sites is too much for us to handle right now. I can say that if Homes Now manages 3 sites, that it will be a lot of hard work, especially in the first few weeks and months. Homes Now is realistic about what we can handle, though, as an organization. With 2 sites, we are still underutilized in what we can do. With 3 sites, it will actually be a challenge for Homes Now, but we can handle it. If Homes Now has 3 sites, then another service provider might be able to get multiple additional sites, and we'd be making a serious dent in the housing problem in Whatcom County for minimal amount of money put into it, and we would be able to export the model to other cities and help more people. Some have questions or concerns about the ability of Homes Now to manage multiple sites. One reason given is our volunteer base. Homes Now has a dedicated group of regular volunteers. I wouldn't say it's especially large, but it is consistent and long-term. You know who you are, and thank you. If you would like to be part of Homes Now and volunteer with us, you can sign up on our website, but the first step is typically to visit one of our villages and get to know villagers and hear about stuff that needs to be done, and it will end up making sense where you can contribute. We seek out volunteers who can think on their feet, take initiative, and help where they see that they can contribute. The reality, though, of how Homes Now manages our village is through the villagers themselves. They run their own villages with the board's full support. In essence, the villagers are the staff of their own village, and their job is to maintain their own housing and help others with housing. And the rest generally takes care of itself over time. This is what allows the model to scale up and be implemented quickly and efficiently. This model promotes self-sufficiency, independence, self-empowerment, and working with others within their own community to achieve common goals. People generally want to be independent, able to take care of themselves, work with others, be part of a team, and most are looking for a hand up and not a handout. Nobody wants to feel like a charity case. Homes Now also supports a model in which residents of villages are treated as equals to the volunteers, staff, and board, rather than beneath them. In the past, this has sometimes caused confusion with some volunteers or board members who didn't understand that residents are fully capable adults, able to manage their own lives and work with other residents to achieve mutually beneficial goals for each other. Disputes do happen from time to time, but nothing major. Typically the stuff you'd run into if you had 20 roommates. Take any 20 people from your neighborhood and try to live together. And that's basically the type of stuff we run into mostly at our villages. In a year or so, Homes Now might be able to take on more than 3 sites. We have a requirement in our permit and in the municipal code that for any tiny home village, there must be 24/7 supervision. In the past, that supervision had to be a board member or outside volunteer, but over time, we were able to get that changed to allow for residents to be the management and supervision. Ever since we got that change, things began to run smoother. This is because if you had a board member or an outside volunteer as the supervision, it created a situation in which you become the boss and people bring their personal disputes to you instead of working it out between each other. In the absence of somebody of a higher rank there all the time, they finally get to work it out between each other and come up with their own systems to most efficiently manage the site. Another requirement for the supervision component, though, is that a resident has to have been a resident for at least 6 months. So between the long-term residents of Unity Village, we have enough villagers who want to help manage a new site to cover 3 sites total. If we were to take on a 4th site, we wouldn't have enough residents who would be able to or would want to do it. Homes Now also does not rely on a hierarchical management structure. We typically have 3 managers to a site, each with equal authority. This creates a system of checks and balances so that all the information does not go through just one person. It allows residents as well to speak with whichever resident manager they feel most comfortable speaking to. The Board of Homes Now also regularly speaks to all of the residents, and we encourage a direct line of communication as well. If a resident feels more comfortable speaking to a resident manager, that's great. If they feel more comfortable speaking to a board member, then that's great too. Some have criticized Homes Now in the past for not having dedicated mental health professionals within our organization or an assigned case manager for every resident within our organization. I want to stress the point that Homes Now is focused on the housing part, but the other services are important too. Residents typically already have their own caseworker through other service providers, such as the Opportunity Council or Compass Health, who specialize in those service areas. Homes Now welcomes any organization who can help with these services to help our residents where appropriate and if needed. If a resident wants to help or can't find a service, we do our best to help them get to where they need to go. But this criticism touches on a point that I would define as stereotypes related to homelessness. There is an implied assumption that the reason why somebody is homeless is because they are a defective, dysfunctional person who needs a lot of help, who can't take care of themselves, or that they need their lives to be managed by somebody else in order to become ready for housing. But the reality is that typically the opposite. The reality is typically the opposite, that it's actually a housing crisis, not a personal crisis. The technical solution to this technical problem is to create more housing at a low rent or zero rent situation. A large percentage of residents who live with Homes Now have a source of income, typically disability or SSI, but $700 a month isn't enough to live on when rent and bills easily eclipse that amount. Typically, this means perfectly capable, independent people are treated as dysfunctional, when in reality, it's a technical, dysfunctional system, not a dysfunctional person. As soon as that income is freed up, people typically improve their lives on their own immensely. Dedicated mental health and addiction services, though, are greatly needed in general, and that's not to minimize the need there, but it is a separate category compared to the housing part. Homes Now specializes in the technical housing part as efficiently as we can. We, of course, will work with others and try to get people the services they need where appropriate, though. The city offered the Pop Mutual Aid Collective to pay for a social worker to help them manage a low-barrier camp. I think having an ombudsman independent traveling social worker would be the best way to go, in my opinion. Not tied to any organization, but would be an independent operator. For those who are not familiar with the term ombudsman, it means somebody who hears and investigates complaints by private citizens against other officials, organizations, or government agencies. A person who investigates and attempts to resolve complaints and problems, as between employees and employer, or between students and a university. Something to that effect. Having an independent position such as this would ensure that people's rights were protected and that fair assessments can be done in regards to sheltering agencies, no matter who those agencies were and those being served by them. I hope that the city will consider something along those lines. In regards to setting up future villages, we also hope that the other service providers, such as Road to Home, will step up too to provide emergency housing. We also hope that the collective will register their nonprofit with the state of Washington, which will allow them to become tax exempt, as well as being able to sign legal contracts with government entities and other organizations and individuals, hence becoming a service provider themselves to help house more people quickly and reliably over the course of the coming years, where it's going to be needed more than ever. Homes Now is only one organization, and there's a lot of people who need help, and many who need help that we're not currently able to provide. Finding housing for people on the lawn and in the woods is a process. It's not going to happen at all, or all at once, or in one fell swoop, or on one big site either. It's going to happen one person at a time, and helping each person into the housing or shelter that they need in order to be successful. I am deeply concerned about the mayor's comments that 210 camp will end in January. I think that people on the lawn need housing and that it's going to take time. If the mayor can say that the process for ending 210 camp by finding housing gradually will start in January, then I can get behind that. But if the mayor is saying that the camp will get forcibly cleared in January if nothing is found, then I'm against that. It's going to take time to find everybody housing, so I suggest an approach of tapering the camp into various methods of housing where appropriate and chip away at it one person at a time, such as what happened with Swift Haven. The majority of residents at Swift Haven were previously camping at Camp 210. As I said before, Homes Now can handle around 3 sites total right now, but other organizations need to step up to share the load and get these people housed. An emergency shelter would be helpful as well, but it never solves the long-term problem of getting out of survival mode and people being able to build their lives up again. It keeps people in limbo to some extent and is a short-term band-aid at best. I also agree that 210 camp has had significant issues in terms of operations being stable from time to time, mostly because of it being a big camp in a largely unregulated situation. But at the same time, this has already been the case before Camp 210 existed, and during that time the conditions were worse for the campers who were in the woods. We've also, and there's still plenty of them out there too, we've also been able to find people at Camp 210 to help them, one organization of many, and the community knows where to drop off donations, supplies, and food. Oftentimes, if people are in the woods, you don't know where they're at or where to find them, and they don't have a cell phone or computer oftentimes, so you can't call them or email them on a regular basis usually. This means people fall through the gaps in the net a lot more often than they should. The camp is an eyesore. It sucks that people have to see it and might be affected by it as a result of the reality of feeling bad or troubled about it. But it's educational and illustrates the facts of our current system, nationally and locally, that is not currently able to adequately serve the most basic needs of people in our community in multiple areas. The system is providing for people's needs in various areas too, but there's some obvious gaps in the net, and they need to be patched up as quickly as possible. While it sucks to see it, it sucks even more to live it. We're in the middle of winter, and imagine having to sleep out there every night. I urge the mayor, county executive, and local government officials to think of this situation as a long-running process and a goal to find people housing, rather than a one-off or isolated situation that can be wrapped up quickly and neatly in just a few weeks. This same phenomenon is happening in most cities, especially cities that have higher levels of gentrification and unaffordable rents. In coverage in the mainstream media about homelessness throughout various cities in the United States, the typical sequence of events is that homeless individuals set up a camp, it stays for a while, nothing gets done or solved, and then the camp gets forcibly cleared, and as a result, people scatter, and the problem just gets worse over time. You'd think after trying the same thing so many times in so many cities with results that don't work, that some might want to change the course of action to achieve some kind of tangible results to house people and not have people living on the concrete in our city. I am encouraged that I have seen some of this in our city, but it's still not enough. It's still a drop in the bucket, but like something different has happened at least, but way more needs to be done. When you look at the reality of the situation in terms of income for most people and the rate of rent, at some point the rubber meets the road and you end up with people who work full-time who are homeless. It isn't right, and it doesn't need to be this way. Homes Now will continue to do our best to house as many people into a stable situation as possible. I hope everyone watching this video will think about how they can help improve this problem. If not us, then who? If not now, then when? I guess that's all I have to say at this time. Have a great day, and good luck out there.